Welcome once again to Cinematic Obsessions, and this is Frank Avila, your host. This is going to be an exciting show. It's a topic that we've never done before, although you've seen other movie shows. And we have two guests who are, we'd say, experts in the field. On the far left, we have Boyse Edwards, who's a popular cable access network TV host, and he's identified with Jam Right Productions.
It's my pleasure to be here.
And Boyse, you have your own show here on Cable Access Network.
Yes, I do.
When is it on? When can we see your show?
I was live 10:30, 11:30 on Saturdays and Sundays.
Okay, in the morning.
In the morning,
okay.
a.m.
10:30 a.m. in the morning, Saturday and Sunday. Before you go to church, or if you're not a churchgoer, you got to see it on Sunday and Saturday. Watch it if you're not out and about shopping and you want to rest. And with this weather, you may not want to go out yet. We'll see how Saturday is.
They can record it and see it later.
You can record it and see it later.
Right.
You got, what's it called? I can't think of it. TiVo. TiVo it. Again, Saturdays and Sundays here on Cable Access Network, either channels 19 or 21 on 10:30 to 11:30.
Correct.
And a longtime friend of our show on Cable Access Network, Boyse Edwards. Thank you for being on.
My pleasure.
And you have Joe Rubin, who has been on a couple shows now. You may have seen him either on Cable Access Network, channels 19 or 21, and or Google Video or YouTube. And he has done shows on Odd Obsessions, which is the movie store in the Wicker Park area, or he did other shows on pornography. Pornography in the classic era, criticism of pornography as a business, and a lot of interesting items related to that. Not that we endorse pornography, of course, and we had many criticisms of it. Actually, we brought up a lot of issues of exploitation, and we're going to do more shows on it because it's a billions, if not tens of billions, I think, maybe hundreds of billions, tens of billions dollar industry.
The most profitable industry in this country.
Most profitable industry, and I don't know if that's good or bad. That may well be bad, but it's certainly something that deserves talk. Now, I want to get into something about blaxploitation films. And what is blaxploitation? Guys, just jump in. Just because a movie has black people in it doesn't make it blaxploitation, is that right?
No, not at all.
Well, what is blaxploitation?
Well, I mean, it's a subgenre of a type of film which was popular in the mid-1970s called exploitation.
Exploitation. Okay, now, when you say subgenre of a type of film, let's talk about first the type of film. What is an exploitation film?
It's
an exploitation film is a film that is designed to target a particular audience, like the urban blacks, or target the Italians, but it's designed to target a specific audience, and it's exploitative because it's mostly stereotype of what one thinks those who produce those films or who write those films. It's their interpretation of what this group.
Now, is it intended to disrespect the group, or is it satire, or could it be both, or either?
It's a combination.
It's a combination, but it's basically to make money. See, the black exploitation film saved Hollywood, or Hollywood, as some people call it, because Hollywood was actually in a financial crunch, and these films actually, because it targeted a particular audience, and the money was made to bring Hollywood up to the level before it went down to from the old 30s and 40s and 50s movies.
Okay, well, so let's so that's the topic, or the type of movie rather. The type. What is the subgenre then of that type of exploitation?
It's urban films. Usually, they're almost always urban. There are some rural dramas usually that can fall into the blaxploitation category, and they're films that were not even frequently directed by black filmmakers, but were about sort of the generalized perception of what the black urban experience usually was, and it usually involves pimps or drug dealers, and frequently the evil white mafia man either trying to muscle into black business or black culture or whatever else it might be. And
well, we know as a brief side note on that. Don't want to dwell on it too much. We were talking about before the show about the policy rackets.
Correct.
And in some historians, Mayor Daley was elected because Congressman Dawson was mad at the then mayor.
Now, for those at home, who was Congressman Dawson? Who was Dawson?
Well, Congressman Pegleg Dawson, who was a Republican.
Correct.
Then he became a Democrat, and he was considered one of the most powerful people because he controlled the automatic 11,
Correct.
which was 11 wards that went 98% the same way.
Right.
And I guess a real old school politician. I think the mentor to Ralph Metcalf, Ralph Metcalf was the mentor to Harold Washington.
Right.
But to make a long story short, African Americans, yes, all African Americans.
Right.
But that the gentleman wrote a book recently who we'd like to have on the show that this to say that there's some perhaps perceived reality of what that movie is, that you had black gangsters,
correct,
who had a gambling racket in Bronze, I think it's centered in Bronzeville,
which was called Policy.
Right.
And it was a numbers game.
It was a numbers game based on the real lottery, and the Italian mafia.
Actually, the lottery was based off of Policy.
Oh, that's interesting.
Policy was first, and then lottery came later, which was legitimized, but Policy was the first numbers game that was actually done by...
That the mafia took over the so-called La Cosa Nostra, the Italian or Italian-Jewish mafia.
Because at that time they didn't deal in nickels and dimes.
Now, going back to blaxploitation, because we don't want to digress too much. So the filmmakers were not necessarily black. Is that what you're saying?
No, some of them were, some of them weren't.
The main intention was to make money.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Are they meant as comedies? Because, you know,
it can be anything.
But I watch some of them that are supposedly serious, and today you might laugh at them.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Well, it's the matter of dating any film. I mean, as a film gets older, and blaxploitation films, all exploitation films were meant to be very immediate. They were supposed to speak to the perceived cultural values of the group the film was about that were existing at that particular time. So, of course, we're watching them in 2008. They're going to seem dated to us. But at that time, they were sort of an exaggeration of a stereotype which sometimes existed and sometimes didn't.
Now, would blaxploitation films then apply to some of today's films that seem exaggerated, some of the hip-hop movies? I like Ice Cube, and I've met Ice Cube. I think he's a good guy. But Friday was, I think, a good movie. But then he got in a number of other movies that just seemed silly, that were perhaps exploitative. And I asked him one time about some movies. He goes, "Well, it's what people like. It's to make money."
Right. Well,
so are some of today's movies
it's just
exploitative films?
It's a 21st century updated exploitation films. You see, they updated. Example, and then we'll get into it later in the show, like when we're going to talk about Superfly and those movies. But you have these movies today is just a updated version of the 70's. They just add iPods and they add other little genres. Instead of Cadillacs, they use Mercedes-Benz and Jaguars, but it's still in the same correct, and it's still in the same genre or the same flavor.
Okay. Now, so that's what blaxploitation films. Now, when I understand blaxploitation films, and this is for our audience to get a little background, I'm a member of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity. I was the only non-black member of a traditionally black fraternity. And as part of our initiation, we actually watched a number of these films. And one of them was The Spook Who Sat by the Door, which I don't think it's too much of a plot reveal, and if it's not, just turn down the volume for a couple seconds. It was a CIA agent who was African American, came back, and he trained other African Americans. There were light-skinned African Americans that could work in the white world. There were janitors who would steal things, and that the CIA agent trained. And it was very revolutionary during times that were kind of revolutionary. Was talking about taking over or causing revolution, riots, problems in America through a black kind of spy network.
Correct.
Because Phi Beta Sigma had a black nationalist overtone, and this applies here because I know we do a lot of political shows, but when we're talking about Reverend Jeremiah Wright and Barack Obama, it is important, I think, to understand a certain mindset. And the Spook Who Sat by the Door, which was originally a book, was considered a primer for a lot of young African Americans. It was a little deeper than just and I think it was a more serious show than maybe Shaft or some of the other shows.
Well, that's why in my opinion, I would not consider that to be a black exploitation film, because the film had a social flavor to it. It was talking about actually how the system, how the CIA system or the government system worked. And as you say, this individual joined the CIA or got into the CIA. He learned all the tricks of the CIA, and then he brought them back to the community to train others to how to spy on the system.
Right.
So I would not call it, in my opinion, wasn't a black exploitation, because it only stayed in the theaters only a month. Downtown Chicago, they pulled it, and you heard no more about it.
The film was almost outright banned.
It was banned.
And I mean, I think there needs to really be a distinction made, if we're going to be talking about blaxploitation films, between films which just are black cinema, like The Spook Who Sat by the Door, and then blaxploitation. And the distinction is that films like The Spook Who Sat by the Door were movies about something relating to African American society, or some kind of ideal, or some kind of sort of, as just said, like some social significance.
Correct.
Whereas blaxploitation films were made to make money. They were not really made to have an impact. They were not made to
foolishness.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is very briefly to talk about black cinema. Maybe for the modern viewer or the younger viewer, when they're thinking of black cinema, or even not necessarily younger, but modern viewer, you think of Spike Lee. You think of Rick. We were talking about Rick Perry, who's I guess that church-going audience, the older Medea, some of the more family-oriented comedies. I think Eddie Murphy has done some production.
Yeah.
And there's been there's been serious shows that have been more educational. Alex Haley did Roots, the made-for-TV movie.
See, but that's more cinema.
Right.
But the stuff like some of those films that Eddie Murphy and those others you just mentioned,
The clumps.
comedies.
Yeah.
Is a comedy a
Or
cinema?
the comedies exploitation?
I would say that they're much closer, like the Eddie Murphy films are much closer to being sort of the modern equivalent of blaxploitation films. Not Spike Lee.
Well, Rick Perry, I think
closer
they're
to-
family-oriented. I think they're good films. But I heard some complaints that there were some black women who were upset at the portrayal of Medea. So Eddie Murphy and I would say Rick Perry to a lesser extent have a number of exaggerated African-American
women.
Yeah, big women who cook, and they dote over the kids, and they talk a lot, and they slap the kids.
And they slap the husbands around. That's the stereotype. But now you don't have a balance. See, stereotype.
Or the black pastor that you see Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, Murphy, the pastor who's like taking the money or talking real crazy. So and those are not cinemas. To me, that's garbage. Now, speaking from a standpoint of looking at the African American standpoint of view, that's garbage because it has no significant value. Now, a family film example was a Bill Cosby type. It shows a family, a structured family. Even Good Times, in the beginning, it was a family-oriented film.
And Janet Jackson was a little girl. A lot of people, Janet.
Correct. But they got rid of the father in the house. So you have to look at it. There's not a balance there. But go ahead.
Okay. But would you consider the current comedies that are like the Clumps or Professor, all the Eddie Murphy type of films? And here you said that they're negative, but aren't some of them just meant to laugh? Aren't some of them funny?
Well, if there's a balance, you see, if you have a lot of one thing and no balance, like Dr. Dolittle, okay, that's a comedy. I'll go along with that. That's a comedy. You're talking about animals and what have you. But then if you have just one set or one type of film and not a balance, then you're locked into this stereotype.
Well, Rick Perry certainly has exaggerated characters like Medea. That would not be considered exploitation.
I mean, I think that to a degree those movies are. And one of the major differences between black cinema and the contemporary blaxploitation films and what existed in both of those forms 30 years ago is that they weren't as insulting. Even in a comedic sense, they weren't as... The stereotypes that were being perpetuated, whether they were true or not, usually presented the black characters as sort of like cool.
Correct.
Even if they were a pimp or a drug dealer or something like that, they were cool, they were respected, they weren't a joke.
Okay.
Blaxploitation comedies rarely made fun of people because they were African American. They were looked at, it was just a comedy.
Now, a more serious movie like Boys in the Hood, that would be a social commentary, not blaxploitation.
No.
No.
Okay. But now let's say Spike Lee, and then I want to go into the theme of the black gangsters versus like the Italian gangster, which seems to be recurring. Some people have criticized Spike Lee for being anti-ethnic or anti-Italian, and he does capture a stereotype, and he uses a lot of the same characters: Danny Aiello, John Turturro. I might be saying his name wrong. I'm probably mispronouncing his name. But when you had Do the Right Thing, you had that whole fight of the Italian-American heroes and Rashid having his boombox.
Right.
And there were some very profound, even from Chicago, which is also a very ethnic city, you had some very profound discussions, but you also had exaggerated characters. Was that exploitative, and is Spike Lee being anti-Italian, or something with Summer of Sam, which was Spike Lee? I misspoke, it's not Quentin Tarantino, it's Spike Lee. Is that exploitative? Because Summer of Sam had very exaggerated characters. That may have represented some truth and may have been very entertaining, but is Spike Lee an African-American anti-Italian? Is that exploitative of Italians? And also, even in Black Caesar with Fred Williams, you have the black gangsters and they devastate the Italian gangsters, which may be reverse of what happened in real life, at least in Chicago, vis-a-vis the policy rackets, or a more serious film like American Gangster, where you did have a powerful black gangster. Although I don't think, for our viewing audience, I don't think gangster life is what we achieve, even if there's residual good things. So just because a black gangster beat out white gangsters, I don't necessarily think that is racial empowerment, but it is important to discuss because the world is more gray. Certainly American Gangster would not be exploitative, I don't think.
Well, see,
with Denzel Washington.
I think that, well, let's go back to the Spike Lee piece.
Okay.
With the Italian piece. Now, there are many cities throughout the nation that scenario took place. Even in Chicago on Taylor Street, right in Chicago on Taylor Street, you know, you had that scenario. Now, it was exaggerated with the boombox, but in those type of films, you have to exaggerate to make it interesting. Other than that, it'd be boring. I don't think that Spike Lee was, because he grew up around Italians.
He grew up around white ethnics.
Right. And
he actually didn't grow around that many blacks when his biography.
No.
He grew around Irish, Italians.
Right. He and others didn't grow up around a lot of blacks. But what they was exposed to. So they're coming from the concept of what they have been exposed to. I don't think they Do the Right Thing was designed to exploit Italians or blacks, but it had a theme that there is a social issue that's happening with a film like that.
Well, now his movies like School Dazed or Get on the Bus, they also have exaggerated characters, but there is real social commentary.
All right, Get
Would
on
that
the
be
Bus.
fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, those
But in
films
School Days was
they're
what?
part of his tourism. That's his style. That's the way
What
he,
is the style?
Well, that's part. I mean, just those. It's the same thing as how he uses color. He uses those types of stereotypes.
Right.
He uses extremely saturated color. That's part of what makes him a unique director. And I don't think that really is a means of saying that he's trying to perpetuate a stereotype of anyone, and he's more using those stereotypes to call into question the notion of stereotyping.
Okay. Now, my idea when I was, again, I am still, but when I was a college student with my African-American brothers, friends who were in the same fraternity as I, we watched Black Caesar, Blackula, The Spook Who Sat by the Door, which I set out. So my understanding of blaxploitation by this list of films, now we went on Wikipedia, we have a list, and some of the films I was surprised on Wikipedia it had Live and Let Die with James Bond, which was an interesting theme when James Bond goes to New Orleans and he's fighting the voodoo people.
Right.
And I'm a James Bond fan, but I didn't think that was
Right,
blaxploitation.
Live and Let Die, the famous British secret agent James Bond, is categorized as a black exploitation film.
Yeah. Well, it had that one bald African American actor who did the 7-Up commercials. I don't know his name.
Right.
It's an actor. But
So we put one black guy in it, and it's an exploitation film.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a difference, though.
Yeah. So, Wikipedia is an incredible tool.
Yeah.
I don't know what people did before word processors, the internet, Wikipedia, and YouTube. I love watching. I can watch old shows on YouTube, and Wikipedia does have a lot of good information. In that particular case, I think it's wrong, and admits that it is a user interactive encyclopedia.
The mistake being made on Wikipedia is a mistake that I think a lot of people make who don't know much about the films.
Right.
They assume that movies made at that time that featured some kind of possible stereotyping of black culture or black people were automatically blaxploitation films because blaxploitation films existed, and therefore if it was even a big budget Hollywood film where it just happened to be that a few of the major characters were black, there are films like that on this list, and they're anything but.
In some of the modern remakes and some of the attempts that I think are blaxploitational, you tell me, I did not like the Eddie Murphy star-studded cast, I think Whitney Houston, of Harlem Nights.
Okay.
I did not like that movie. I didn't think it was a well-done movie.
Correct.
But it was the same theme as the black gangsters are beating the Italian gangsters during the time of Prohibition.
Correct.
I thought the old Shaft was better than the new Shaft.
Correct.
I thought the real Starsky and Hutch was better than the new Starsky and Hutch. And there may be some other blaxploitation films. I know there's some parodies of the blaxploitation films.
Part of the reason why these remakes, again, this was a formula that made money, and the money people do not want to take a chance on something new, but say let's redo this thing again, and we can get paid again for it. All right, Shaft. Take an example of Shaft. I'm talking about the first Shaft. That was the first movie where you see here's this black character, this private detective, who is playing this positive role, save the girl, beat up the bad guys. And that launch at that same period, and in our studies we found many young black men began to want to become involved in law enforcement. They went to detective school to become detectives. They began that exploitation, or they began, it made them want to become more self-independent. Oh, I can get into the detective game. So the remakes is just Shaft 2. That was, to me, garbage.
It's just a way to make money off of something.
It's a money thing.
That was popular before.
Starsky and Hutch.
Now, you do have some good actors. I always thought Jim Brown was a good actor. We were talking about the show, I think it was 1001 Rifles.
100 Rifles.
100 Rifles. And it was a famous scene because one of the things in blaxploitation, some of the black heroes get white women.
Oh, my God.
Which was a radical thing at that time.
Very radical.
Because
You
even
should have seen
Sammy
the
Davis
write-up on
Jr. had to stay away from John F. Kennedy.
Correct.
He couldn't, because he dated a Swedish model at the time,
Correct.
and that was a huge scandal. That was only 50 years ago.
Correct.
Or less than 50 years ago. But you have, in 100 Rifles, you have the very famous love or sex scene, perhaps not even love, with
Rachel Welch.
yeah, Raquel Welch and Jim Brown.
Right.
And it was a very hot scene. You have Mandingo,
Right.
which was had a interracial type of thing. So was that an element of blaxploitation films that was bringing something new in there, which was interracial, or the black hero getting the white woman?
That was, in my opinion, that was testing the waters to see, again, the interracial thing, to see how that thing would fit, how it would work. Jim Brown got so much hate mail when he did that movie. And not only from the Caucasian, he got it from blacks. Why you got this one? And the same way with the star Mrs. Welch. She got the same hate mail. Because it's new, remember a long time ago, even the husband and wife, they say Lucille Ball, they slept in different beds in the movie or on TV.
Dick Van Dyke.
So now here you got this football player, this big black guy, got this Caucasian woman, and they got this scene. Hollywood is about the dollar. If we can have them to do something with an elephant, it make money, they're gonna go for it.
Okay. Now we're gonna go to some clips, and I want you guys to talk about some of the movies before that. But one
jumping in at a time.
Yeah, one movie I did like,
Okay.
which I don't think was blaxploitation, but did have some of the same actors like Pam Grier, was the Quentin Tarantino, Jackie Brown. Number one, I thought it an incredible soundtrack of bringing back some of the R&B or what would be black artists. Well, I think all of them were black artists, like the Delphonics did, and I Blow Your Mind This Time, or Brothers Johnson, Strawberry Letter 23, songs that you had not heard on soundtracks, perhaps ever, but for at least for some time, that were this kind of great kind of R&B or blues and very soul music. I mean, Brothers Johnson, I think, were tremendous, but they never got a lot of play.
Correct.
Or the Delphonics.
Right.
And you had Robert De Niro in it, you had Samuel L. Jackson, but you also brought back Jackie Brown, and I even believe the character Mike Cherry was brought back from some old films, and he was a white actor, and he falls in love with Jackie Brown, so the reverse, a white man falling in love with a black woman, and their bond, besides doing the law enforcement and the adventure, is also the music.
Right. And see, to add to that, before we go to the clip, those particular movies was designed for the recording artists so that they can, in fact, boost the sound. See, the soundtrack, if you look at the soundtrack, became the bigger issue. The picture itself was just secondary. If you look at those pictures, even in the theaters, the soundtracks is booming with four-way, the quad sound. And you get caught up in the music, and you're just looking at these little images. But that was designed
So
to
what did you think of Jackie Brown?
I mean, I have a problem with Tarantino as a whole, because Tarantino, I don't know, Tarantino is in love with exploitation films. And he's in love with exploitation films of all forms.
But they're not black exploitation films.
Well, he likes them all. He likes blaxploitation, women in prison.
He don't discriminate.
All the different ones.
Well, him and Spike Lee got into a beef. I want you to continue over the use of the N-word, which even though it's cable, I could get naked on cable. We won't do that. That probably won't up the ratings or anything like that. But and we have one of the movies, which is a clip of, which is called, and I'm going to say the word, and if people don't get offended, I want to get the hate mail. It's Boss Nigger.
Nigger, for the sake of the conversation.
And since you're black, Boss Nigger, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, he can say it from now on, and it's actually a good film. But Spike Lee and Quentin Tarantino, which I think are very similar filmmakers, were criticizing each other and their styles of film, even though certainly Quentin Tarantino uses a number of black actors, including Samuel L. Jackson. But tell me why you don't like Quentin Tarantino.
Because he makes films about his love for exploitation films and brings something new to them. He just takes elements that he thinks were original and creative in the films that he likes, and then he just copies them. He transports them.
Well, certainly Kill Bill.
Kill Bill is a plethora of remakes and him trying to outshine everyone's knowledge.
Something together.
Yeah.
But wouldn't you say that there was some innovative in Reservoir Dogs, in Bad Lieutenant?
That's Ferrero. Bad Lieutenant is Ferrero.
Is that for? I thought Quentin Tarantino was part of. No, okay, I take that back. But Reservoir Dogs, I thought was a good movie. It was a unique movie.
His movies are they're good, but
entertaining.
they're very surface value. Like for me, I wake up, I watch movies. I watch movies all day. I think movies all day. When I watch one of his films, all I see are a bunch of references to other movies. I don't see.
Well, Pulp
Quentin
Fiction had a
Tarantino.
lot of references to other movies, certainly. I also thought it was a decent soundtrack. Not a black, soulful soundtrack, but Pulp Fiction was a good soundtrack.
Well, you know, with Jackie Brown and soundtrack and film together, I think that the most important thing about it is that it has Pam Grier.
Okay.
And that she and Pam Grier epitomized, she was the sex symbol of blaxploitation
Correct.
films. She epitomized what filmmakers said a beautiful black woman was supposed to look like.
Well, she is a beautiful black woman, Jackie Brown.
Definitely.
But there are other beautiful black women.
Okay.
But she was a tall, black female.
Okay. Well, let's go to the clips. But before we do, the clips we have are Cool Breeze, Boss Nigger, Blackula, Cleopatra Jones, Foxy Brown, Carwash, Norman, Is That You, and Cooley High. And again, there's a number that we don't have, such as well, I guess we do have Blackula, but Black Caesar, and some others. But before we start the clips, I'd like both of you to comment on some of those movies, if there's some highlights that we want to discuss before we see the clips.
I think the most interesting one of the bunch is Norman, Is That You? Because it stars Red Fox as a guy
Red Fox, who many people know from Sanford and Son.
Right, correct.
As a guy whose wife has maybe just left him, maybe not, he's not quite sure, and he goes to visit his son, Norman, in Los Angeles, where he hasn't talked to him in a while, and Norman's supposedly become this big, successful guy, and he goes to his apartment only to discover that Norman is in fact gay, and worse, his lover is an effeminate white man.
That'd be pretty radical for the time.
Yeah, and the film was from 1976, I believe.
1976, right.
Well, in 76, those topics would have been fairly taboo.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it.
Maybe even today, but certainly at that time, this was before they were giving, awards to Brokeback Mountain,
Right.
which I thought was an overrated
Which
film.
I call Limp Wrist Valley.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a great... Actually, I thought his Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was a much better film. I mean, I think they gave it awards
Visually,
because of the political...
definitely
Yeah, it's
superior.
visually was a much better film. But at that time, and here, and just to give some context, and then we'll go, and I want you to talk, then we'll go to the clips, is that even here, and I'm not criticizing, but Munir Muhammad, who's here on Cable Access Network, he was criticized because he sits on some boards with Rob Blagojevich and the sheriff, that he, in his website, he had, or did have, I don't know if they still believe, in no miscegenation from a black perspective.
Correct.
As does Louis Farrakhan, as do some of the other people, black Muslims, black Israelites, that have here on Cable Access that I've done shows with. So, and not just Louis Farrakhan, but also the Elijah Muhammad school. So it's not just whites being racist or not wanting to have either a white man with a black woman, or a black woman, I think, or a black man being with a white woman, which is far worse, I think, from their perspective, but also a black a black desire not to have either gays, number one, or number two, interracial relationship. Is that fair to say?
Oh, yes, that's fair to say. But you find the people who in Hollywood who makes these things, you look at their background, and so again, it's about money, and there will always be a percentage in the community that will be against everything. The only thing that most people want is balance. You can have a film of lesbians, okay, but you got to have a film that are non-lesbian. There's not a balance, and so you run into those problems. But you find some do not want to see a black man with a white woman, a white woman with a black man. They don't want to see an Italian man with a Chinese woman, or a Latino woman with an Asian man. You're going to find people that feel that way.
Now, before we go to the clips, out of those clips, is there anyone that you think our viewing audience should pay more attention to?
Carwash. Carwash, at that period of time, there were many African Americans who began to own car washes, and it was and the film is based up off of that because of the employment piece. That's when a lot of blacks who had money began to get car washed because cars was the biggest issue was a big thing at that time.
And a great soundtrack, great song.
Again, it goes back. The soundtrack is what sells the movie.
And a song that's played even today.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a look at these clips.
Meet the Lord, Sidney Lord Jones. He's cool breeze, and cool breeze is cold business.
$3 million worth, maybe more. Von Keep's the biggest diamond broker on the coast.
What's in it for me?
The money we make will be used to set up a black people's bank. You'll be into legitimate business, and you'll be doing something to help Soul Brothers for once.
You'd have to be white not to recognize him. What about him? He's in San Quentin.
Was, Lieutenant. Was.
Hey, where you going, man?
Funny looking nigga, all right.
Go tell Mr. Finney and Sidney Lord Jones is here to see you. Everything's key to go at midnight tomorrow. The soft spot's here, through the old steam tunnel. Any questions?
Travis, the muscle. Roy, the boxman. Mercer,
Cheeky baby.
the money man. Johnny, the driver. He had a plan to hit the man right where it hurts, in the diamonds. $3 million worth of Whitey's ice. And baby, that's cold.
You know, you're no token nigga around here. You were given that job to get it done. Now, what the hell is it getting done? Bust them!
Vivian!
I swear to God I had nothing to do with that Von Keith thing.
The dude with the diamonds is deadly.
Hold it, Mr. Taker here. Get him up! Nervous, Travis? A little bit.
Now toss that over here.
Cool breeze. Did he do it for the people or the price? Starring Thalmus Razalala as Sidney Lord Jones with $3 million worth of ice. And baby, that's cold. Cool breeze from MGM. They rode into a white man's town. Bringing black man's law. He's black. He's brutal. He's boss. Fred Williamson is boss nigger.
They call him boss nigga.
I just swore on your new deputy. Made myself the sheriff.
Being called a nigger in public. Now that's $20 or 2 days in jail.
Take your filthy black hands off me, nigger.
He just locked up the bank president.
Well, you all been hunting black folks for so long, we just want to see what it felt like to hunt white folks.
Part legend, part devil, all man.
That's just to satisfy your curiosity.
Good morning, gentlemen. It's my pleasure to tell you that...
Sir, you are interrupting our breakfast. We never discuss business while we're eating.
Where'd you learn to talk like that?
I've been wanting to say that to somebody for 8 years. My slave master said that to me once. It sounded so pretty, I never forgot it.
We got that nigga, let's go.
I ain't leaving this town till I gets me Jed Clayton.
Fred Williamson is boss nigger. Derville Martin, his deputy.
They call him boss. They call him boss. Boss nigga. He's so bad. They call him boss. They call him boss. Boss nigga.
Black Prince, I curse you with my name. You shall be Blackula.
Blackula. The Black Avenger. Rising from his tomb to fill the night with horror. Blackula. Dracula's soul brother. Deadlier even than he.
You know, he is a strange dude.
You're the nut that ran in front of my cab. You're the only imbecile on this street. Boy.
Blackula.
Listen, man, you'll find out. He's got to be around here somewhere. I mean, now listen, you wait. You take your hands off of me. I don't know you.
He thirsts for your blood. He hungers for your soul. Warm young bodies will feed his hunger. Hot, fresh blood will quench his awful thirst.
Make it a Bloody Mary. Are you, into the occult?
No!
How about the, heavy stuff?
What do you think of vampires?
Vampires? I think they're possibly the most fascinating ball.
More horrifying than Dracula. The Black Avenger. Blackula. From American International Pictures.
Guess who jumped out of the woodpile?
If I ever hear of you selling so much as a cough drop, I'm coming down on you so hard.
Tamara Duff's the Soul Sisters' answer to James Bond, and the most exciting new star in years. 6'2" of dynamite, and it's all stacked.
I told you where, and I told you when, and I told you how to get there. Cleopatra Jones. In my business, son.
And up against her is the artist to Goldfinger, two-time Academy Award winner Shelley Winters as Mommy.
Don't crowd me, boy. You better put that down before I make you eat it.
Oh, I don't want this town to blow up.
Big deal. Just hang it right there.
Right on, sweet sister.
Man, that broad is 10 miles of bad road.
You are no match for that black lady.
I'll take care of Cleopatra Jones.
Cleopatra Jones, starring Tamara Dobson. Co-starring Bernie Casey, Brenda Sykes, Esther Rhodes, and Shelley Winters as Mommy.
And with your love, you shook me.
That's what I call some extra heavy double duty stuff.
When Foxy Brown comes to town, all the brothers gather round, 'cause she can really shake 'em down.
Foxy lady, Foxy lady.
Pam Grier, that one chick hit squad who creamed you as coffee, is back to do a job on the mob as Foxy Brown.
You tell me who you want done, and I'll do the hell out of it.
A chick with drive who don't take no jive.
That woman, she's crazy. There's no telling what she'll do.
She's sweet brown sugar with a touch of spice.
If you see a man in the U.S., send him in, because I do need a man.
And murder if you don't treat her nice.
Sounds like a public menace.
Sure do.
Foxy's got guts. No ifs, ands, or buts.
I better warn you, I got a black belt in karate. And I got my black belt in bar stools.
She won't budge when she carries a grudge.
I want justice for all of them, whose lives are bought and sold, so that a few big shots can climb up on their backs.
Sister, I think what you're asking for is revenge.
So there ain't no hope for dudes who deal dope.
I swear, baby, I don't know what you're talking about.
We're gonna kill ourselves a couple of niggers.
Have no fear, Pam Grier is here as Foxy. Foxy Brown.
They still do it by hand at Mr. B's.
Morning, Mr. B.
Morning, Snapper.
Only determination,
Got the big three.
dedication, and a tough crew of men can get the job done.
Stand and deliver, honey.
They've got a sharp boss who always has control of the situation. They've got teamwork.
I'm Floyd. Ho! And I'm Lloyd. And we're the Futurists.
And most of all, they've got the will to work.
I don't want you to leave here without realizing what I can do for your car.
Like what? Take over the payments for me?
This is the wet and wild world of the car wash, a business a man can be proud of,
I want to work with the men, Dad.
where the only rule is you do it with style. It's hard work, because sooner or later, everyone comes through here.
Did you happen to see a big, tall, black, blonde chick here with
Big black blonde
red
chick?
boots?
Listen, I'd like to talk to someone and get some information about a social disease.
Hey, brothers, I'm here to unite with you.
Hey, baby, how you doing? Good, I'm glad to hear that.
Between the washing and the cleaning, there's always room for dreaming. Now, the next car through might be the answer to your prayers.
Praise the Lord, praise the Lord.
Well, praise this car, honey.
Thank you, miss.
But one thing is certain. When it comes to serving the public, these men will stop at nothing. George Carlin, Professor Irwin Corey, Ivan Dixon, Lorraine Gary, Jack Kehoe, the Pointer Sisters, Richard Pryor. They all come together at the fabulous, free-wheeling Soap-Suds Emporium, where everything goes.
Boy, there's been some weird people in here today.
Car Wash.
For years, he's been a nightclub star, a record star, a TV star, and now he's a movie star. The man, Red Fox. The movie, Norman, Is That You?
You no good, lousy, greasy, funky, low-life.
MGM presents Red Fox.
It's the big time.
And Pearl Bailey
Oh, my God.
in Norman, Is That You?
Oh, my God.
The story of Ben Chambers, who wakes up one morning to find that his brother has run off with his wife to a romantic motel in Mexico.
I hope you're drinking the water.
So he goes to Los Angeles to pour out his heart to his only son, Norman.
Norman, is that you?
Dad, what are you doing in town?
Norman used to be the all-American boy, Now he has purple drapes, flowered underwear, and a roommate named Garson.
Oh, fabulous! I'm afraid my son has become a Tinkerbell.
I don't believe anybody by that description is presently on these premises.
Does Ben panic? No.
I'll kill him.
He studies the subject.
You have a nail salesman?
He examines the statistics.
1 out of 6. It says right here. Why, in that game alone, probably 2 or 3 of them.
He tries diplomacy.
I'm gonna strangle you!
That is a very immature attitude.
Yeah, but it works.
Psychology.
Say Mississippi.
Mississippi.
Perfect. See there, you don't walk like one, you don't talk like one. I say you're not one.
He tries everything.
Audrey, this is my son Norman.
Well, hello. He's cute.
Then he panics.
Help! Help!
And just when things look really bad, they get worse.
Let me in. I have to use the bathroom.
Good. Suffer. Beatrice, I'm glad you're here because I never want to see you again.
And what is that supposed to mean?
Norman has sex problems.
That runs in the family.
Put on your clothes and I'll introduce you to my wife.
Oh, fabulous! I think you got yourself an all right old man, sugar.
How can you stay here with Norman and I'm staying here with Norman?
Because I'm his mother.
Well, I'm his father.
Well, I'm his...
Oh, shut up!
It's hilarious.
There's a sexual revolution going on.
And all of the leaders are in my family.
It's hysterical.
The family from Tucson goes to hell. Look out, America.
It's outrageous.
Guess whose son has a chance to become Miss America?
It's the wildest comedy of the year.
Oh, fabulous!
I'm warning you, I don't want to hear that word from your mouth.
Red Fox and Pearl Bailey.
They deserve each other.
Norman, is that you?
It was the best of times. They were the best of friends. They made the best of memories.
Why don't you go somewhere?
Your place or mine?
Those cool days. Coolie High.
We were talking during the clips about Ivan Dixon,
Yes.
who was the African-American U.S. GI POW in Hogan's Heroes.
Correct.
And he died recently, and he was in a lot of these films.
Correct. And it's some of the best films.
Yeah.
He was in a lot of films, but he was only noted for Hogan's Heroes.
Even though he was in all these films,
All
with a
these
good
films.
actors. Yeah. And there was actually, I don't even know how well he would play, although it wasn't that the story. There was a story about the Hogan's Heroes in it was a kind of interesting movie on sex or sexual addiction.
Autofocus.
Autofocus
Yeah.
with William Dafoe and the guy from
Yeah, about what's his name?
used to be
The
on the
guy
Talk
from
Soup. He was
John
pretty good.
Carpenter, but the guy from Hogan's Heroes, what was his name? Steve Crane.
Crane.
Bob
Yeah,
Crane.
Bob
Steve
Crane.
Crane.
Yeah, but and Ivan Dixon really never got a lot of credit for these films. Just died recently, so rest in peace. A little memorial to him. We were also talking about how Fred Williams was not only in all these films as a main actor, including some of the better ones, but also Quentin Tarantino has used him. And I forgot, it was mentioned during the break that he was used in the vampire movie he did. The one about the bar. What was that called?
Which one?
With the vampires, with George Clooney, with Quentin Tarantino himself, with the cop from Bad Lieutenant.
Right.
What was that show called? Oh boy,
What'll come up?
the name will come to me. I mean, I've seen it. It's a decent movie. But you were saying From Dusk to Dawn. We had our help from Dusk to Dawn.
Right.
You were saying that MGM and who else? Who did the main movies?
American International Pictures, which was a company that had been around since the mid-50s, and they were just the king of popularized exploitations. They invented the monster craze along with Roger Corman, and they're run by these two old Jewish guys, and I forget the name of the other one, but it was Samuel Ziarkov and then another guy who was his partner, and originally Roger Corman were with him too, and they really cornered the market on blaxploitation films. I'd say around 75% of all the blaxploitation films that came out in the 1970s went through them.
Okay. So you had these two older Jewish gentlemen, It was not black. So the producers, the directors made the money, the banks made the money, Hollywood made the money, but did the black actors make the money?
No, they didn't. They just got paid union scales in those cases, and they never got
any residual rights or anything.
No, that came along.
Profit sharing.
That came along later, when in fact you found that that came along like in the 80s and the 90s. But
now, Boyse, were these then was it not only blaxploitation, but were the black actors and the black community exploited based on where the money went?
Correct. I mean, you found that none of the all of the money that was made or gathered from those films went out of the community. Nothing came back into the community, and it's like the same thing as today. The money goes out, nothing comes in. The dollar turns around in most communities at least 6 times. In the African American community, it turns around a half a day.
Now, I remember growing up, there were some famous movie theaters, and you have the Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel, you have the Pickwick and Park Ridge.
Right.
In Uptown, we were talking, in the Spanish community, my dad told me that on the near west side there used to be Spanish language film, or film where they had westerns. Are there famous theaters in the African American community?
No.
None?
The Blaxploitation films in Chicago, they played at the Loop Theaters. They played at the McVickers, the Roosevelt, the Oriental,
United Artists,
which was...
Well, Oriental's a beautiful theater, but I remember they used to have the one on State Street that they tore down.
State Lake?
State and Lake.
The Roosevelt, that was also on State Street across from where Marshall Fields is, or now Macy's.
So all the main downtown, not the Gold Coast. Well, now I think you have some in the South Loop area too. But they basically taken down all the downtown movie theaters.
Correct.
Yeah.
So where do African Americans now go to the movies, Boyse?
Well, here in Chicago, you have the three, what they call Magic Johnson has a cinema on Roosevelt and Kersey at the mall. Many of them go out to the Ford Mall, but you don't find many.
Okay. But there's not that many owned in the community famous theaters that have that kind of Oriental.
No.
Almost all of them were torn down. At one point, Chicago had close to 200 movie theaters. Today, we have under 40.
And it's a lost art, and it's a beautiful architecture. Now, you were telling me also during the break when we saw the clips that you have subgenres of the genres. What are some of those?
Well, as we saw with a movie like Blackula, there was a horror subgenre there in blaxploitation films. There were films like Abby, Blackenstein, Blackula, Scream, Blackula, Scream, that were all blaxploitation films with horror elements.
Okay. And one more time, Boyse, because we're almost out of time. When is your show on?
Saturday, Sundays, 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m.
Watch our friend Boyse Edwards with Jam Right. And this is Frank Avila, your host. That's about all the time we had. We hope you enjoyed it. We're going to do some more shows on movies and blaxploitation and specific movies and try to get some of the actors on here. To our viewing audience, thank you for watching. Goodbye. God bless.
But if you lose, then there's no questions asked.